Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into the Twilight Saga.
All 4 books.
All 4 books. We're going to unpack why this series became such a phenomenon and really break it down for you chapter by chapter.
Yeah.
No need to lug around those heavy books.
Hey, yeah.
We got you covered.
That's right. And let's face it, with all the vampire craze these days, it's the perfect time to revisit the series that arguably started it all.
Okay, so let's set the stage. Book 1, Twilight. What's the initial setup that throws us into this world?
Well, we're introduced to Bella Swan, who's moving from sunny Phoenix to perpetually overcast Forks, Washington, to live with her dad.
Yeah.
She's not exactly thrilled about it, but it's a chance for her mom to travel with her new husband.
Right, typical teenage angst. But I'm guessing things take a pretty dramatic turn from there.
Absolutely. Bella starts school and quickly becomes intrigued by the Cullens, a family of ridiculously good-looking, super athletic students who seem to keep to themselves.
Yeah, and this is where Edward comes in, right?
Exactly. Edward Cullen, mysterious, brooding, and undeniably attractive.
Bella is drawn to him, but he's distant and even hostile towards her at first.
Oh.
But then he saves her life in a rather spectacular way, stopping a van headed straight for her with superhuman speed.
That's not your average meet cute. I imagine that sparked some serious curiosity in Bella.
It definitely did. Bella starts piecing together clues about Edward, his ice-cold skin, his aversion to sunlight, his uncanny strength. And then she has a conversation with her friend Jacob Black, who shares some local Kalut legends about vampires.
Ah, the first hint of the werewolf element that becomes so central to the story later on.
Precisely armed with these legends and her own observations, Bella confronts Edward, and he confesses his secret. He's a vampire who survives on animal blood, not human.
So not exactly the blood-sucking monsters of traditional vampire lore.
Right. Meyer puts a unique spin on the whole vampire mythology. Edward and his family struggle with their thirst, choosing to live a vegetarian lifestyle. But it's still a constant battle, and Bella's scent is particularly alluring to Edward. This makes their relationship incredibly dangerous. Forbidden love at its finest. But it's not all yearning glances and forbidden desires.
Right.
Things get pretty intense in Twilight.
They do. The danger escalates when another vampire, James, a tracker with a thirst for human blood, catches Bella's scent and becomes obsessed with hunting her.
Adding another layer of complexity to this already complicated situation.
Definitely, James's arrival forces Edward and his family to go into full protection mode, putting their own lives at risk to save Bella. We see Edward's fierce protectiveness and Bella's willingness to risk everything for him.
And amidst all this danger, the romantic tension between Bella and Edward continues to build. It's a classic case of attraction amplifying in the face of danger.
Exactly. The climax of Twilight sees a final showdown between the Cullens and James, with Bella caught in the middle. It's a tense battle that pushes everyone to their limits.
So Twilight really sets the stage for this epic saga of forbidden love, supernatural dangers, and the constant struggle between desire and responsibility.
It does. And as we move into New Moon, the stakes get even higher, and Bella faces some heart-wrenching decisions.
Okay, let's dive into New Moon. What happens next?
Well, despite surviving James's attack, Bella isn't out of the woods yet. Edward, convinced that he's a constant danger to her, makes a devastating decision.
Let me guess, he leaves to protect her.
You got it. He believes Bella will be safer without him in her life. He stages a breakup, leaving her utterly heartbroken and lost.
Wow, talk about tough love. That's a pretty dramatic turn of events.
It is, and it sends Bella spiraling into a deep depression. She's completely numb, unable to function without Edward. This is where Jacob Black's role in the story expands.
Yeah, we got those hints about werewolves in Twilight. I'm guessing this is where things really develop with Jacob.
Absolutely. As Bella withdraws from the world, Jacob becomes her lifeline. He's there for her, offering comfort and support as she tries to piece her life back together. And as they spend more time together, a different kind of attraction starts to develop.
So we have the beginnings of a love triangle forming here.
Exactly. And it's further complicated by Jacob's own supernatural transformation. Remember those Quilut legends?
What?
Well, it turns out they're true. And Jacob isn't just a regular guy.
He's a werewolf, right?
Yeah.
Triggered by the presence of vampires.
You got it. The closer Bella gets to Jacob, the more she's drawn into this ancient conflict between vampires and werewolves. It's a world she never could have imagined, and it pulls her further away from her human life.
So Bella's caught between two worlds, two supernatural beings who represent very different paths for her.
Exactly, and her choices become even more difficult when Edward re-enters the picture, unaware of the bond that is formed between Bella and Jacob.
Talk about a recipe for drama. So New Moon really throws Bella into the deep end of the supernatural world, forcing her to confront her feelings for both Edward and Jacob while navigating these ancient rivalries.
It does, and as we'll see in Eclipse, Bella's journey of self-discovery and the consequences of her choices only intensify.
Okay, so we left off with Bella caught in this supernatural love triangle with Edward back in the picture, and Jacob's werewolf identity revealed. Where does Eclipse take us from here?
Eclipse picks up with Bella still grappling with her feelings for Edward, and Jacob Edward's return has rekindled her passionate love for him, but she also feels a deep connection with Jacob, a bond forged through shared experiences and understanding.
So it's not a simple choice between two guys, but a decision with profound implications for her future.
Exactly. But before Bella can fully sort out her emotions, a new threat emerges, bringing danger and forcing some unlikely alliances.
I bet it has something to do with Victoria, the vengeful vampire who wants Bella dead.
You got it. Victoria, seeking revenge for the death of her mate James, is creating an army of newborn vampires, and their target is Bella.
Oh.
This forces the Cullens and the Keelut werewolves, who have a long-standing animosity, to put aside their differences and work together to protect Bella.
So we have vampires and werewolves teaming up, talk about an epic alliance, but Bella still has this huge decision looming over her head.
Right, and this external threat forces her to confront her feelings head-on. Bella realizes that choosing Edward means embracing a life as a vampire, a life that is both alluring and terrifying.
And choosing Jacob would mean remaining human, staying connected to her family and her world, but also living with the knowledge that she'll eventually age, while Edward and the Cullens remain eternally young.
Exactly. It's a decision that forces Bella to confront her own desires and fears her mortality and the sacrifices she's willing to make for love.
So what does Bella ultimately decide?
In a moment of self-realization, Bella chooses Edward. She acknowledges that her love for him outweighs all other considerations, even the loss of her humanity. And with this decision made, Eclipse culminates in a thrilling battle against Victoria and her newborn army.
I imagine this battle tests the strength of the Cullen-Keelut alliance and reveals a lot about each character's loyalty and courage.
Absolutely. It's a fight for survival. And amidst the chaos and bloodshed, the bonds between the characters deepen. We see Edward's unwavering commitment to Bella Jacob's selflessness in protecting her despite his heartbreak, and Bella's own emerging strength as she faces her fears head-on.
So Eclipse really pushes the characters to their limits, both emotionally and physically. It's a pivotal point in the saga, with Bella making a life-altering decision and facing the consequences of that choice.
Right, and with that decision made, we move into Breaking Dawn, where the repercussions of Bella's choice unfold in ways no one could have predicted.
Okay, let's dive into Breaking Dawn, what's in store for Bella now that she's chosen a life with Edward. Okay, so the Volturis are coming, and they think Renesmee is something she's not. How do the Cullens convince them otherwise? It doesn't sound like a simple my bad situation.
No, it definitely isn't. Cullens know that a direct fight against the Volturi would be disastrous, so they take a different approach. They gather allies from around the world, vampires who can attest to Renesmee's true nature and vouch for the Cullens' integrity.
So it's a massive gathering of vampire witnesses all coming together to protect this one child.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
It is, and it speaks to the power of family and loyalty within this story. The Cullens have built strong connections throughout their existence, and those connections come into play in a major way here. They need to prove to the Volturi that Renesmee is not a threat, and they need irrefutable evidence to do so.
I'm on the edge of my seat here. What happens when the Volturi finally arrive? It sounds like an epic showdown.
It's a tense and dramatic confrontation, but not necessarily an all-out battle. It's more of a war of words and displays of power. The Volturi are a formidable force, and they don't easily back down from a challenge.
And how does Bella factor into this? We know she's a vampire now with her own unique abilities.
Right. Bella plays a crucial role in this confrontation. Her shield ability, which protects her and those around her from mental powers, becomes a key factor.
Okay.
It prevents the Volturi from reading her thoughts or influencing her, and it also shields Renesmee, giving the Cullens a significant advantage.
So Bella's power essentially becomes a game changer in this whole standoff.
Absolutely. It forces the Volturi to reconsider their assumptions about Renesmee and the Cullens. They realize that Bella's shield is a rare and potent ability, and it makes them question whether they're truly willing to risk a confrontation with such a formidable force.
So what's the final outcome? Do they fight, or does diplomacy win out in the end?
Diplomacy ultimately prevails after much deliberation, and witnessing Bella's shield power and Renesmee's unique nature firsthand, the Volturi decide to retreat. They acknowledge that Renesmee is not a threat, and they leave the Cullens in peace.
So a happy ending for Bella and Edward after all that they've been through. But what about the other characters? How do things wrap up for Jacob and the rest of the Cullens?
The ending is bittersweet for some. Jacob, despite being heartbroken over Bella, ends up imprinting on Renesmee. It ensures his connection to the Cullens family, but it also adds a layer of complexity to their already unconventional relationships.
Yeah, that imprinting concept is something readers debated quite a bit. It's a fascinating and somewhat controversial aspect of the story.
It is, and it raises questions about fate, free will, and the nature of love. But ultimately, the series ends with a sense of hope and optimism. The Cullens are united, their family has expanded, and they've proven that even in a world of darkness, love and acceptance can prevail.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today, from Bella's arrival in Forks to the final confrontation with the Volturi. It's been quite a ride. We've explored the forbidden romance, the supernatural battles, the complex relationships, and the thought-provoking themes that have made the Twilight Saga such a phenomenon.
And even though the series has ended, it continues to resonate with readers, sparking discussions and debates about love, sacrifice, identity, and the choices we make when faced with extraordinary circumstances.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Twilight Saga. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the stories that capture your imagination.